Welcome back, Acolytes. The archives have been expecting you. At the end of Return of the Jedi, the Death Star 2 was blown out of the sky above Endor, and with it went the Emperor. At least as far as most everyone was aware. The news quickly began reaching around the galaxy, and many planets were collectively celebrating the fall of the Empire and the death of Palpatine. However, many are not aware that this moment was not the end of the Galactic Civil War officially. In fact, the war would continue for almost another year and a half, although it was heavily one-sided since the Emperor had fallen. In canon continuity, we know that the rebellion would rise to become the New Republic, and the Emperor would meet their final end at what we learned to be the Battle of Jakku. But what all led up to this battle? How exactly did the Empire begin to break down? Why did they become such a fractured group of warlords that we know them as by the time of The Mandalorian? And could Thrawn potentially bring them all back together? Well, my friends, it's time to actually dive into the datacrons of canon continuity and bridge the gap between Endor and Jakku, attempting to document in a bulletized fashion the entire fall of the Galactic Empire. As we know, the galaxy was in a state of full celebration when the second Death Star was destroyed. This is where the end road began, with the celebration at the Imperial capital, Coruscant. Luke Skywalker once again said that the people of Coruscant were the ones that celebrated the loudest when the Empire fell. And that they did. They celebrated so loudly, in fact, that a civil war broke out on the planet itself. It all started at the Monument Plaza. The citizens of Coruscant began pulling down statues of the Emperor, setting off fireworks, and overwhelming the stormtroopers on the street. In a panic, the Coruscant police force arrived in speeders to respond, and began to open fire straight into the crowd without any given warning. What began as a celebration was now a full-blown riot. Some climbed atop edifices of the Emperor to jump into the police speeders. One officer was flung from his speeder to the plaza's ground, while another was struck in his head with a rock. The other speeders retreated as blaster fire and fighting erupted across the capital between the people and the Imperial security forces. The rebellion, though, was quick to respond with aid, as Coruscant erupted into a true state of civil war. Some city senators remained free from Imperial control, and its citizens entrenched themselves with the rebel resistance fighters, while other sectors of the city actively fought against their neighbors and continued to support the Emperor and the Empire itself. The ISB attempted to blockade the planet, and the Empire set up barricades around the entire city. But no matter how much the Empire fought back, the rebel forces continued to overwhelm their positions using guerrilla warfare. But this time, the Empire was losing ground far more rapidly due to not receiving any outside aid. Their strength in numbers had always been their trump card, but now no one was coming. In the ensuing months, the New Republic would eventually be formed, with the first motion being to reverse the corruption that the Emperor had done by re-establishing the Senate on the planet of Chandrila, away from Coruscant. The New Republic then immediately began funneling resources to aid any planets looking to join their cause. But back to the Empire, they began attempting to restrict access to resources such as provisions and Tibana gas on the Empire-owned worlds in order to maintain what little control was left. As the Empire quickly grabbed for resources, chaos gripped the galaxy as members of the Imperial Council and Moff Council, as well as various other warlords, attempted to grab all the territory that they could. Infighting spread like wildfire as Imperial leadership turned cannibalistic. The Empire was tearing from within, as the warlords all fought one another for power and control, rendering what was once the indomitable regime into a collection of squabbling factions, leaving them uncoordinated, vulnerable. This left them weak to all attacks made by the New Republic in their Galactic Liberation campaign, as the New Republic did not relent. As systems began to slip through their fingers, the Imperial remnants took drastic measures. They suppressed communications in the worlds that they commanded, including the HoloNet, then spreading propaganda that illegitimized the New Republic, downplaying or outright keeping secret the death of Palpatine. In some places, even saying the New Republic was a capital offense, and any talk of the Emperor being dead was punishable by imprisonment, and in some rare cases, death for spreading what was called rebel lies. Many of the Imperial leaders were at a loss of who was truly in charge, however. Authority technically fell on the shoulders of Grand Vizier Masameda, but he was in his own state of panic on Coruscant. Because of the riots, the Coruscant security force had placed him under house arrest, but only for his own safety. But he had completely given up all hope that the Empire was ever going to regain power, so he had attempted to turn himself into the New Republic and Chancellor Mon Mothma as well as Princess Leia, but instead, they refused to take him prisoner and ordered that he find a way to consolidate the Empire and sign a complete and full surrender treaty. Mas Amedda was attempting to throw himself off of the highest balcony, but he was stopped by Grand Admiral Ray Sloane, who offered him a solution to bring the Empire back together. While Mas Amedda was having no luck enforcing his authority, there was another set of orders given to the remaining Imperial commanders all over the galaxy. 20 days after the death of Emperor Palpatine, messenger droids were dispatched to various commanders, informing them of the posthumous orders of their late emperor. This was what is known as Operation Cinder, perhaps one of the most insidious plans that Palpatine would ever devise. The Emperor believed that if he were to ever die unexpectedly, the Empire did not deserve to live beyond him, and in fact, Operation Cinder was a plan to punish the Empire for failing to prevent his death. The plan revolved around several satellite superweapons called climate disruption rays. Each of these had the ability to bombard a planet from orbit with a beam that would ravage its ecological balance. This meant causing hurricanes, scorching oceans dry, cataclysmic damage to the natural environment as a way to utterly decimate the world. It was the monumental version of scorching and salting the land. Operation Cinder would see the Imperial commanders guiding these satellites to key Imperial planets across the galaxy, each planet being a target of Palpatine's revenge. His own people. Worlds like Burnin Khan, Candovant, Comenor, as well as Vardos, a world which was actually known for its intense loyalty to the Empire. He burned them all, and he ended with his home, Naboo. The Emperor's orders further placed Gallius Rax to be promoted to Fleet Admiral to see the operation through. Gallius, as we will soon find out, was actually something of a protege to Palpatine. He had been raised since childhood to be completely loyal to the Emperor, to see out all of his commands through should he meet an untimely end. Rax had no qualms about seeing the Emperor's plans to fruition, no matter the cost, even his own life. Several of the worlds would be devastated by the satellites, but the New Republic would soon intercept and destroy many of them before they reached the rest of the galaxy, saving Naboo, which was saved and then liberated in the Battle of Theed. With a half-failed attempt by the dead Palpatine to destroy his own empire, the Imperial remnant was left in a state of complete disarray and hysteria. They continued to try to counter the reports of the Emperor's demise with a proxy actor made to look exactly as Palpatine had. However, the public quickly picked up on this. The truth of Palpatine's death soon became known to the public. Declarations of a new emperor were made almost every single day, but none of them could consolidate any real power. Mas Amedda attempted to keep the Empire together, while warlords all made a desperate grab for the throne. The word was out, and a new emperor was needed. Continuing to prove themselves fools, they did not realize that the war was basically over. Most of the veteran troops of the Empire were killed on the second Death Star, as well as many of them perishing on Vader's own ship, the Executor. This left the Empire with only new troops and commanders which were not as effective as their higher leaders, especially that while the Empire was getting worse, the New Republic was getting better. More and more planets seceded to the New Republic, or were lost in military campaigns due to the inexperienced Imperial pilots or soldiers. World by world would fall into the hands of the New Republic, stripped away from the dying clenches of the Empire. They would grow more and more tactically clumsy, and had a problem that they hadn't faced in years: a lack of personnel. By this time, the Emperor had made a desperate final plan, including 3 separate attacks on Naboo, all of which, though, were eventually stopped. TIE fighter pilots even began making kamikaze attacks on entrenched Republic positions, and various commanders executed wholesale massacres of native populations. The HoloNet, now free of Imperial censorship, brought such atrocities directly to the public. And by this time, many Imperial officials had no choice and had to go AWOL, running to hypersecure outposts to avoid the New Republic's sentencing of any war criminals. With now a massive number of Imperial systems having defective, or now announcing that they were independent, the remaining Imperial leaders held a summit on Akiva. They formed the Imperial Future Council and discussed how to save the crippled Empire. Unfortunately, they were unable to come to an agreement of what to do next with their limited resources, as they were all slowly failing. They discussed raiding the intergalactic banking clan for money, but they didn't want to plunge the galaxy into an economic depression. one of the Emperor's advisors, Uptashu, a great admirer of Sidious and the dark side cultists, suggested sending the Imperial remnants deep into the unknown regions, sending them to search for a source of the dark side. This man believed that bringing the Empire and having it be baptized again under the influence of the dark side would give them power. But another leader suggested that they should stray from the teachings of the dark side, remaking the Empire's image. With none of them ending on a decision, they at last attempted to decide who would take the throne as Emperor. Unbeknownst to them, none of them were doing what actually would matter. The Emperor's chosen successor, Gallius Rax, was on the move. Rax saw the Empire as old, weak, corrupt, overripe. He desired to do away with the old Empire as Palpatine wanted, but to build his own on top of the ashes, straying from his master's teachings. To Gallius, by allowing the New Republic to gain any ground, he not only eliminated potential competition, but also consolidated the leftover pieces of the Empire. Rax planned to use the Empire's last foothold in the Outer Rim as a strangling cord to tie around the New Republic, denying it of resources. And while the old Empire relied on third-party corporations to produce military hardware, Gallius had made sure all aspects of the production chain would be solely Imperial. To conclude the plan, Rax founded the Shadow Council, a council to govern the new Empire from behind the scenes. It comprised of the first of the highest order of Imperial minds, and their ultimate goal was secretly guiding their order into a golden age, to clear away the old and to finish the Emperor's vision of destroying the Empire. Rax took command and lured the Imperial Future Council and all of the remnants who responded to the planet of Jakku, promising to strengthen their forces. In reality, he was going to turn on them and destroy them all there. There, he put them through a brutal training regime, forcing all of the commanders to encourage their men to maul one another. This was meant to harden the Empire for their big stand against the New Republic. In reality though, Gallius was allowing the men to go insane under his training, as he believed that Jakku would break them. For months, the stormtroopers and pilots were on exhaustedly high alert, waiting for the attacks by the New Republic that Gallius Rax had promised. This made them paranoid and open to madness. At last, the New Republic would catch wind of their Imperial activity there though, and would send a fleet. The Battle of Jakku would commence. Things went exactly as Gallius Rax wanted them to. The Imperial Navy and military were weak and uncoordinated. Their training had only made them far too tense and reckless. The New Republic, by contrast, was able to easily outflank them to turn the battle into a full-blown slaughter. Meanwhile, Rax and his loyalists escaped Jakku to a nearby safe house and planned to detonate the planet's core, wanting to destroy both the Imperial loyalists and the New Republic fleet in one critical strike. Luckily though, his depraved plan would ultimately be stopped, as Rax himself was killed by Grand Admiral Ray Sloane. The Battle of Jakku was a catastrophic failure for the Empire. Their promised valiant last stand was a one-sided massacre. The Empire was crippled, disintegrated. There were only a few strongholds left in the entire galaxy, and the New Republic needed time to heal. Mas Amedda was forced to sign the Galactic Concordance, a humiliating agreement that imposed strict and punishing reparations on the Empire. It also included treaty stipulations, outlawing the recruitment and mobilization of the stormtroopers, paying heavy war reparations, adhering to strict disarmament treaties, banning torture, and ceding its capital of Coruscant to the Republic. While some of the scattered warlords did not agree to the concordance, they were ultimately of no threat to the New Republic. They were officially the dominating government of the galaxy. The Empire was no more. And that, my friends, was the embarrassing fall of the Empire from Endor all the way to Jakku. We learned of the Shadow Council recently in The Mandalorian, a council that is led, presumably, by one Grand Admiral Thrawn. And now, since at the end of Ahsoka, Thrawn has returned to the main galaxy after being in Peridea, he seems to have a very keen idea on how he wants to take the Empire back. To him, it is not dead. His plan seems to have a lot to do with the Night Sisters and the Night Mothers taking back Dathomir, setting up a new generation of the Empire there. There is no doubt that Thrawn will want to maximize his resources by pulling together the members of the Shadow Council under his command, and since he is taking the name the Heir to the Empire, perhaps he can fix the Imperial remnant, especially after Moff Gideon wasted so much of their time and resources obsessing over the Mandalorians, building a false, Force-sensitive clone body. But my friends, we will have to wait for The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Dave Filoni's Star Wars film to answer that question. But what are your thoughts on the last year of the Galactic Civil War that we didn't see past Return of the Jedi? Of the battles that we mentioned, what was your favorite? And what do you think would have happened had the Empire actually pulled its resources together? What would happen if the Empire refused to crumble after Endor and fought back against the Rebel Alliance? Could they have defeated them then? Thank you so much for watching, love you guys, and have a great day.